Imagine becoming one of the most recognized figures in the world at just 25 years old. Now, think about staying in that role for over 70 years, through wars, global crises, and dramatic shifts in society. This is the life of Queen Elizabeth II, Britain's longest reigning monarch. Her reign wasn't just long, it was iconic, filled with incredible moments of leadership, diplomacy, and service. But what truly sets her apart is the way she embraced her responsibilities, transforming herself from a young naval officer's wife to one of the most revered leaders in modern history. When Queen Elizabeth ascended to the throne, the world wasn't sure what to expect from such a young monarch. Overnight, she went from being a mother and naval wife to a head of state, tasked with leading not only Britain, but also the Commonwealth, a collection of nations representing over 2 billion people. Her life changed in an instant, and with it came the weight of enormous responsibility. What makes her story truly remarkable, however, is how she approached that responsibility with a tireless dedication to service. Queen Elizabeth didn't just see herself as a ceremonial figurehead, she worked. For over 70 years, she committed herself to her country and her people. And when we talk about the Queen being a working monarch, we don't just mean attending official ceremonies or waving from balconies. Queen Elizabeth was constantly on the move, travelling across the globe, meeting with world leaders, dignitaries, and everyday citizens. Over the course of her reign, she visited more than 100 countries and undertook over 260 official overseas visits. It's hard to imagine the stamina required for such a relentless schedule, but for the Queen, it was part of her commitment to service. Before she became Queen, she once said, "There is none of my father's subjects from the oldest to the youngest whom I do not wish to greet." And she stayed true to those words throughout her reign. Elizabeth visited every corner of her realm, some places multiple times. She showed up, shook hands, and made connections, building trust and showing that she was more than just a distant figurehead. Her presence was often symbolic, reminding people that they mattered and that their leader was paying attention. It's a lesson in leadership that transcends royalty. Sometimes, the simple act of being present and engaged with the people you serve is more powerful than any grand gesture or policy. But being the Queen wasn't all glitz and glam. There was an immense amount of behind-the-scenes work that few people ever saw. Every day, the Queen was presented with her famous red boxes, filled with state papers, reports and briefings. These documents required her review and formal approval, and they were a constant part of her daily routine. She wasn't just a ceremonial figure signing papers. She was actively involved in governing the country. Every law, every bill that passed through Parliament ultimately required her approval to become law. It's an incredible workload, and yet she handled it with meticulous attention to detail. Think about its sort. Every single day her inbox was overflowing with critical documents. Imagine your own work emails multiplied by 100. But she tackled the workload day in and day out, showing that true leadership isn't just about the public-facing moments. It's the hard work that happens behind closed doors, the daily grind that no one sees, that builds a legacy. And in this, Queen Elizabeth set an example for anyone striving for success in any field. Success comes from consistency, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to the task at hand. One of the more fascinating aspects of the Queen's reign was her unique relationship with Britain's prime ministers. Over her 70 years on the throne, she worked with 15 prime ministers, from the legendary Winston Churchill to the most recent, Liz Truss. What's interesting here is that while the Queen was constitutionally required to remain politically neutral, she still held a special role in advising her prime ministers. She famously had the ability to encourage or warn them, offering subtle guidance based on her vast experience. Imagine being a newly elected Prime Minister, walking into a private meeting with the Queen herself, one of the most experienced leaders in the world. The pressure must have been immense, knowing that while she wouldn't dictate decisions, her advice carried enormous weight. The Queen's relationship with her prime ministers offers a fascinating glimpse into how leadership can be more about guidance and influence rather than direct power. It's about knowing when to step in and when to let others lead, a delicate balance that the Queen mastered over the years. Her role as head of state extended far beyond Britain. Queen Elizabeth acted as a diplomat and hostess to world leaders from across the globe. Over her reign, she welcomed over 110 presidents and prime ministers to the UK on official visits. She wasn't just there to smile for the cameras. She forged real relationships and played a significant role in the world's diplomatic landscape. Whether it was welcoming a new president from the United States or hosting a state banquet for visiting dignitaries, the Queen's diplomatic efforts helped shape the global perception of Britain. And then there were her patronages, over 500 charities and organisations that the Queen was personally involved with. These weren't just figurehead roles. The Queen took her patronages seriously, using her position to raise awareness and bring attention to important causes. From youth development programmes to wildlife conservation efforts, her involvement in these charities made a tangible difference. It wasn't just about attending charity events, it was about using her platform to highlight issues that might otherwise go unnoticed. Her involvement provided vital publicity for these causes and helped to shine a light on the important work being done. One of the Queen's most personal missions was recognising everyday people for their service. Through the UK's honours system, she awarded thousands of MBEs, OBEs and CBEs, recognising people who had made significant contributions to their communities and society at large. It's a side of the Queen that many people may not know about, her dedication to celebrating the unsung heroes. In her own words, she believed that it was important to recognise people who do unsung things, the individuals who quietly make the world a better place without seeking recognition. And let's not forget her family. Throughout her reign, the Queen was supported by her husband, Prince Philip, whom she often referred to as her strength and stay. Together, they raised 4 children, all while navigating the immense pressures of royal life. Prince Philip, in his own right, was involved in many charitable efforts and accompanied the Queen on countless state visits and official engagements. Their partnership was a cornerstone of the Queen's reign, and his passing in 2021 marked the end of an era for the royal family. Beyond her family, the Queen also drew strength from her faith. In her 2014 Christmas broadcast, she spoke of how the teachings of Jesus Christ had been a role model of reconciliation and forgiveness for her. Her Christian faith wasn't just a private belief, it was a guiding principle that shaped how she approached her responsibilities as Queen. Through wars, personal losses, and public challenges, her faith provided her with perspective and solace. And for many, this was one of the more relatable aspects of her life. Her ability to remain grounded in something larger than herself, even in the face of unimaginable pressure. Queen Elizabeth's reign was remarkable not just because of its length, but because of how she approached it. She wasn't just a ruler, she was a servant to her people, a diplomat, a leader, and a deeply committed public figure. She showed up, worked tirelessly behind the scenes, and stayed true to her values through it all. Her legacy isn't just one of longevity, it's a testament to the power of dedication, service, and grace under pressure. From meeting thousands of people to working through endless stacks of paperwork to celebrating everyday heroes, Queen Elizabeth's life is a powerful reminder of what it means to lead with integrity, humility, and purpose. Her reign will be remembered not just for the length of time she spent on the throne, but for the way she embodied the very essence of service to her country and the world.